Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, let me begin with a question. Have you ever felt trapped in or trapped by something or someone? Perhaps it was a person, or a situation, a job, a lack of money, or anything that made you feel like you couldn't follow the powerful flow of intention, of your intention. What if we realized that that feeling of imprisonment was not caused by other people or other circumstances, but by ourselves? There's an interesting book by Arthur Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. In this book, he describes how, as a Jewish man in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany during World War II, circumstances that we cannot fully understand, probably. The pain and suffering that he experienced, that he observed, that he heard about, we probably cannot imagine. However, in the middle of that, he discovered how some people were able to survive much better than others. And he realized for himself how he could find liberation in the middle of that horrific imprisonment. Our liberation, he says, is our own work, whatever our circumstances are. So this week's Tarot and Oracle spread is asking us to consider that. And because the new moon has come and gone, the tarot cards and oracle cards have been switched out. So, if this is your first time here, let me give you a brief explanation. This is where I use tarot and oracle cards to help me dive into topics related to living the intentional life. And so, I have a tarot and oracle spread all laid out. Let's take a look at it. What do you think? If you are a regular visitor here, this spread might be a little bit surprising for you. It's a very different layout and very different kinds of cards. They're simpler. They might even be described as minimalistic in some ways. And not the common kinds of cards that I have been using on this channel up till now. So if you're curious about these cards and who created them, as usual, there will be a clip at the end of the video giving you that information, who created them, what they are. And as usual, there will be links below the video in the description box telling you where you can go to purchase these decks. Fortunately, all of these decks are still available at the time of this video. So go check them out and purchase them. Remember, I do not get any financial rewards if you use the links. These are just to make your life a little easier. So go check them out. They are interesting and beautiful cards, don't you think? Now, if this is your first time here, let me give you a general overview of what we're looking at, or what you just saw. In the center, this time there are 3 cards, which are from an oracle deck, and they give us the central meaning for the entire spread, the theme or the thesis statement, if you will. And then around the oracle cards, there are 4 inquiry cards, cards with questions on them, and each one of those questions is answered by 2 tarot cards, one from 2 different decks. So we will begin by looking at the oracle cards, as usual. So take a look. Isn't this oracle deck fascinating? You saw 3 different mythical creatures from 3 different areas of the world. Actually, one of them, Garuda, or Garuda, I think, is from the Indo-Asian area of the world. Yeah, Golem is from the European area, and Nekomata is from Japan. So we've got East Asia, South Asia, and Europe represented in this spread. Not by my design, but those were the cards that came out. So let's begin with Gollum, because Gollum, I think, is the central meaning or the central idea of this spread. What is Gollum? You might even know what a golem is. Yeah? A golem is a creature that is made by a human being through the working of magic. Yeah? It's a magically created creature. It could be created out of clay or metal objects or other material things that are stuck together and imbued with magic and brought to life. The golems have been used in movies as well. So you might know them from movies, you might know from your studies of magical workings, etc. A golem. Now in this deck, the golem reminds us that we have a craft. Yeah, have you seen the movie The Craft? Very popular movie from many years ago. I think it might have been remade. Also, well, The Craft, magic. We all have our own magic or craft. And when we think of it in the broadest sense, magic is only one kind of craft, right? There are many kinds of crafts. There's magic. There's also pottery is a craft. Some say acting is a craft. That is one of my crafts. Keeping a beautiful home, making a beautiful home. Interior design is a craft. Yeah? There are many, many different kinds of crafts, and all of us have them. One at least, probably more than one. So what is your craft? What are your crafts? Perhaps you're focusing on one particularly at this moment or at this time. What is your craft? So this card asks us to remember what our craft or crafts is or are, and that this is the time to focus on them. Now, focus on our crafts. It's time to remember that we each have talents and magical abilities, and we want to spend time honoring those, fulfilling those, acting on those, and spend time honoring life. Because the reason we are here, we are eternal beings having a human experience. And the reason we are here, and the reason we are flowing with intention, and the direction that our intention is flowing is the craft and life and all of that wonderful, beautiful stuff. We came here to create. We came here to do workings. We came here to experience and do and choose and make and intend. And that's what this card is here to remind us of. We have that magical power. We are imbued with magic. We are enlivened by magic, and we have a craft, and we want to focus on that. And honor it and honor life. And then we look at the card right next to Gollum, which is Garuda. Now, Garuda is a magical creature, a mystical creature, not magical, a mystical creature from the area of India. And Garuda is a creature, you notice its wings and its powerful body. A very sexy looking mystical creature, right? Garuda is swift. Garuda is powerful, which you can probably see from the picture. Garuda is also a shapeshifter. So, this card is reminding us that as we focus on our craft, we want to maintain our speed as much as possible. We want to maintain our confidence as much as possible. Now, we live lives, and our speed and confidence will have ups and downs. We want to realize that and accept that and honor that, as the Golem reminds us of, to honor the cycles of life, to honor the progress of life and the waves of life, the ups and downs, the high points and low points. remembering that high points are not necessarily the good ones and low points are not necessarily the bad ones. There are good low points and there are difficult high points. A highly stressful day is not what we would normally call good in most circumstances. A low energy, very calm, relaxing day is not necessarily a bad day, but something that a lot of us are hoping for. Yeah? Some highs are wonderful, some highs are not. So, high energy, low energy is not a way of discriminating between good and bad, but just variations on a spectrum. And there are variations on the spectrum of speed and the spectrum of confidence. And, okay, low confidence we would not normally say is something that we want, but something that we want to accept and honor for ourselves. We honor our emotional states, whatever they are, and move in the direction of a higher state. So, we want to direct ourselves in the direction of swiftness and confidence with our craft. We want time to make a decision and act. We want to realize that this is the time to make decisions and to act, rather than being mired in choices that we cannot make. So Garuda is telling us to make a decision, go with it. Move with confidence and speed as we work on our craft. If you're a painter, have you ever sat in front of a canvas and thought, what am I going to do with you? Now that's the experience that we're trying to move beyond. Or a writer, imagine looking at a page and thinking, what am I going to write next? Or a person at home, looking at a dirty house thinking, what am I going to clean now? Yeah, we want to make a decision and go with it. Because there are no wrong decisions. The only wrong decision is the not made decision. We make a decision, we realize it's not exactly what we want, or it's not working the way we hoped it would, and then we can make another decision. But being stuck in indecisiveness is the worst choice. And Garuda is here to remind us of that. Garuda also wants us to remember that it's not time to second guess ourselves. Once we've made a decision, we want to go with it. And it's that second guessing that often keeps us stuck in indecisiveness. So, as we're working on our craft, whatever that may be, we want to remember to make the decision, go with it, and learn from whatever the consequences are. We don't want to be rash. We don't want to be hasty in the sense of, I've got to make a decision. I got to do something. Do it. It's not asking us to be foolish, to be hot-tempered, but it is asking us to be rationally able to make a decision, not second-guess ourselves. To say, okay, both of these look good. I'll choose this one. Not, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This. That's a different experience, right? So, be cool, be level-headed, be grounded, be centered. Look at the options. Which ones look good? Choose one. Just choose one and go with it and learn from it. And then we have Nekomata. Nekomata, the Japanese cat. Now, according to this deck, I haven't gone back to research this in depth, but according to this deck and the creator of this deck, traditionally in Japan, there was a belief or a fear that if you kept a cat for too long, it would first grow a second tail. I've never seen a cat grow a second tail that's lived with any of my friends or with myself, but There was the belief or the legend, perhaps, that a cat kept for too long would grow a second tail and then grow to be, not in size, but become a monstrous creature. It would attack and it would eat people. And so this card is reminding us that there are times when we keep ourselves too tightly on a leash, when we confine ourselves to whatever it may be. It might be a relationship, it might be a job, it might be a place, a house, a room, an area that we never venture beyond. There are times when we keep ourselves on too tight of a leash. Have you ever done that for yourself, to yourself? I know I have. Sometimes limiting the range of our exploration can be good. But for a period of time, until we get settled, until some place becomes familiar. I just moved to a new city at the beginning of, actually, almost exactly 1 year ago. And for the first few months, I limited the range of my movement to my home, my apartment, and where I needed to go to meet my needs, the stores, that kind of thing. Because this place was so different from where I was living before that I needed, and my job was also very new, that I needed to limit the amount of new stuff coming in. I needed to get comfortable with my daily routine and where I was going and how I was going to get there. But then, after 6 months, after 9 months, when I got comfortable, I was still keeping myself within that range of home, office, where I needed to go, and not exploring much beyond those areas. So that's what I mean by keeping ourselves on too tight of a leash, not exploring other areas, other options, other people. This card also asks us to remember that too little freedom is never beneficial for us. A cat, according to the creator, traditional Japanese lore, when kept for too long, when confined too long, without giving that cat freedom, will become a monster. And we also, when kept without any freedom for too long, start to change in a not good way. Some of us become monsters and attack and become ferocious and lose our sense of humanity. Some of us, instead of growing violent and monstrous, shrink and shrink and shrink till we almost disappear. Of course, I'm not speaking physically, but emotionally and mentally, we shrink. And there are other possibilities. Some of us just go numb when we are in confinement. Some of us lose a conception of anything beyond whatever that thing or circumstance is that is imprisoning us. And wherever we are in our life's journey, there is almost always, for all of us, a prison that we are in. Whether it's a mental one of ego or an emotional one of loneliness or negative emotion. Unless we have reached the state of liberation or enlightenment, we are still trapped in some illusion. And that's where we want to move, beyond the illusion, beyond the trap that we have created for ourselves. No one creates that for us. Remember, Arthur Frankl, that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, reminds us that our freedom is our own work. Whatever our physical circumstances are, our freedom is our own work. And part of discovering our freedom, for most of us, can be searching other areas of the world, be it another city, be it outside of our neighborhood, be it another country. It could be other relationships, joining clubs, meeting new people, leaving an abusive partner, finding yourself. Perhaps finding yourself is actually the relationship that needs to be discovered for our freedom. But it doesn't always mean just going beyond the physical confinement or even a relationship confinement. It could be the confinement within ourselves, within our mental constructs or our emotional constructs. And when we're trapped within those, we either wither and die or become monstrous in one way or another. And those, what often people who do tarot and oracle consider the shadow work, the shadow side of self explodes from within, and we do hurtful things to ourselves or others. And this card of the Nekomata reminds us that we want to move towards freedom, and that no matter how free you feel, there is still more freedom to be discovered until we reach, honestly, the non-physical. The non-physical is the freest we are. The next step down might be enlightenment or liberation within a body in this physical realm. And until we've reached that in these bodies, we're still trapped by something. So what do? We find out, where is it that we're trapped? How do we free ourselves? And there are many ways to do that. And the ways are unique for each individual. But there is a way. And that's part of the game. That's part of the experience of living as an eternal being in a physical body. So remember, what does this oracle spread? What is the thesis? What does this oracle spread remind us of, or is it teaching us? It's teaching us that we each have a craft. We each have something or some things that we are here to do, and we can love those and enjoy those. We can move with those swiftly. We can have confidence because that's who we are. We are the ones who love doing these things. And those things can change. We can get a new craft whenever. We're the ones who love doing those things, and we can have confidence in the journey of that craft, remembering that the first time we pick up that craft, we're going to be not as good as we are 10 years later. Not expecting ourselves to reach that mastership from the very beginning. We want to enjoy the journey with confidence. Confidence from the beginning with the beginner mind. And then we want to remember to be decisive, to make decisions, not get trapped within our own minds of confusion or indecisiveness. And we want to also remember that we don't want to trap ourselves. We want to be free. We move constantly towards freedom as we work with our crafts. We move towards freedom. And the other choice is to become monstrous in some way. So friends, that's what this card, this oracle spread is trying to remind us of. Freedom is our purpose here, as well as joy. Joy and freedom are our purpose here in these physical bodies. And doing our craft is our purpose. And we can do both as we follow the powerful flow of intention. So friends, we've got 4 questions Let's look at the first question. The first question is, what is the healthy choice? And isn't that an interesting question? Because that's what we're talking about here. Physical health, emotional health, and spiritual health, mental health, are all based on this idea of finding freedom that we were just talking about in the oracle cards, right? So what is the healthy choice? And we have two cards answering these. One of them is the Two of Pentacles, or the Two of Discs in this tarot deck, and the other is the Tower. Perhaps a little bit unexpected. Now, these answers might have been a little surprising, right? Let's start with the Two of Pentacles, because that one is the easier of the two to deconstruct. Two of Pentacles. Multiple priorities, time management, prioritization. So that makes sense, right? The healthy choice is not to let ourselves become overwhelmed by making choices, being confident, following our craft. Yeah, we want to be balanced. We want to balance our physical resources, our resource of time. We want to prioritize what we're doing as much as we can. That's the healthy choice. And if we prioritize things and we get things organized and balanced, then we're much more capable of making choices and being confident with what we're doing. Haven't you experienced that? When things feel organized around you, whatever your level of organization is, your level of organization is going to be very different from mine. But when my level of organization is in place, and I'm not worried about finding things or, oh my God, what am I going to do next? I'm much more able to be clear-headed, make decisions, and feel confident in what I'm doing. You notice that for yourself as well? So that's the healthy choice. First, to be balanced, to balance our stuff and our time, prioritize things, balancing our resources, and that's Two of Pentacles. It's also the card of possibilities and adaptation. Now, you don't see it so much in this card, where we see a person holding these two discs like off a little bit to the side, like this. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, we see a person kind of doing a dancing, juggling act with the two pentacles above their heads and the lemniscate around the two pentacles. More of a balancing act of adaptability and flexibility. And that's something also to remember, that when we get things organized and we have things prioritized, we also want to have flexibility, because circumstances change. Life happens. Circumstances change, right? Life happens. So we want to be flexible in our organization, in our balance. But you'll also notice that in this card in particular, instead of being that dancing, flowing one, and we want to keep that as a meaning in the back of our heads, that flexibility and adaptability, this one is holding the two discs off to the side, and they're structured a little bit like the Tower, which is right next to it. Do you notice that? That these two discs are lined up very similarly to the Tower. So, we also recognize that we are the ones who are holding our towers up. We're the ones who maintain our structure. And sometimes that's a good thing. We want to maintain our structure, to have the feeling of security, the base, the platform from which to move and to feel confident, to be able to make decisions quickly, easily, flexibly. We want both. We want the base and we want the flexibility. But then we have the Tower right next to this person, behind their backs, but there. So we've got the one that is being held up by the figure in the Two of Discs, and we have the Tower at their back. And the Tower, if you know tarot, you see the tower and a lot of people freak out a little bit, or at least get a little bit unnerved and unsettled. I know I sometimes do, not often, sometimes do. And I was a little bit unnerved here because how is that the healthy choice? Because usually the tower means what? It's the card of sudden change, of upheaval, of chaos. And it's a little difficult to see in this card. Did you notice that? Let's start with the Rider-Waite-Smith. In the Rider-Waite-Smith, what do we see? We see the tower being hit by lightning, and two figures are flying out of either the windows or off of the roof. Anyways, they're in midair and they're plummeting down to the rocks or the ocean below. And the sky is black. Now in this card, the sky is not black. There is no light hitting the tower. In fact, the tower looks pretty stable, doesn't it? However, there are figures falling from the tower. Did you notice them? There are at least two, and there might be three figures falling from this tower. So, sudden change, that's a sudden change. Now, upheaval, chaos. But there are other meanings of the tower. It's also the card of revelation and awakening. So, rather than chaos and sudden change being the healthy choice, that doesn't make sense, right? Revelation and awakening is a healthy choice. We balance what we have and we awaken. We realize the prison that we have created for ourselves, because that is part of what that tower is. And the tower's cracking open is for a purpose. And that purpose is to have the structures that are imprisoning us crumble. And we can do that for ourselves. Or we can wait until someone or something does it for us. We can wait. For example, let's think of a job. We're in a job and perhaps we realize or we know at the back of our heads that this job is not really right for us. We're either not suited to the tasks that are being asked of us, or the people, the supervisors that we are working with, we don't get along with them very well, or it's just not the kind of work that makes us feel comfortable or happy, or maybe the work that we're doing feels immoral or unethical in some ways. Yeah, maybe we are working for a company that we realized is also part of the petrochemical complex, and we feel that the petrochemical complex is unethical in some way. Now, there are sometimes we realize that the company that we are working for and in is related in some way to something that we don't feel is entirely ethical. And so sometimes we stay in those jobs because we need the money, even though we know that we're not really suited to this job for some reason. And we can always make a choice. It doesn't feel like it, but we can always make a choice. And those choices are more diverse than perhaps we often imagine. It could be going out and starting to look for another job. That might be the best choice. It could be finding ways to make ourselves open to being suitable to working at the job before we find another job. It might be not even making ourselves suitable for the job, but finding the things in the job that we are doing that are interesting for us, or that we can find appreciation for. Rather than focusing on the parts that we don't like, if we can find appreciation for the parts that we do like, and every job that exists, there is something there that we can find. If we're working in the sewers, it could be the people we're working with. If we're working in the mines somewhere, and the mines that we know are not a healthy place to work in, it could be realizing that the people that we're working for, the people we are working with, the results of our labor might be helping other people. We could focus on those, we could be focusing on those things, concentrating on those aspects that we can find appreciation for. Perhaps we can realize that the coal we are mining is helping someone right now until we find a new solution for our energy problems. If we focus on that, and we find appreciation for that, that we are helping people in the interim, then we will find ourselves cracking open to other possibilities. And we might find the other job. We might be sent to the other job. Or, on the other hand, what we could do is suffer in the job that we are in, and perhaps one way or the other, our tower will be burst open suddenly in ways that we often don't like. We'll be fired, we'll get sick, we will have a fight with somebody, we'll get into an accident. The tower is going to crumble one way or the other, and we could either do the deconstruction ourselves, or we can wait for it to happen. And waiting for it to happen is not the healthy choice. Is not the healthiest choice. Doing the deconstruction ourselves is the healthier choice. Rather than waiting for ego to have an ego catastrophe. We can also break down our egos as well. Allow them to crumble. Not crumble in the sense of getting rid of them and destroying them, but the ego catastrophe of the ego losing its defenses. We can take down those defenses ourselves and allow ego to assume its proper place. Because when ego is in its proper place, all is well with the world. It's when ego inflates itself and thinks it has to protect this body all on its own. And it has to build walls of protection, layer by layer by layer, to keep itself safe. Because it is alone, it's isolated, and it's in danger. Danger, Will Robinson. However, if ego is in its proper place as part of the fuller consciousness, doing the work that it was designed to do, allowing us to work around in society, have relationships in society, do jobs, discriminate between this and that, between chocolate ice cream and strawberry ice cream, for example, make decisions of what I like and what I don't like. That's what ego is for, and is very beneficial in those areas. So when ego is there, in the fullness of consciousness, which is also in the fullness of the eternal beings that we are inhabiting these human bodies, co-creating these human bodies. And if we can break down the walls on our own, then we can have that awakening. We can have that realization, which is the healthy choice. And as we find our liberation on our own terms, as we keep things balanced, we are clear, we're good to go, and we're flowing with the powerful flow of intention. Or we can stay trapped within our towers and wait for the tower to be cracked open and for us to be thrown out of it. One way or the other. That's not the healthier choice. Doesn't seem like the healthier choice, does it? So, that's what we want to do. We want to find our way of breaking down the walls, breaking down the prison walls, the physical prison walls, the emotional prison walls, the mental prison walls, the spiritual prison walls. So, we've got the first question pretty well covered, I think. Let's look at the second question. This question is, what am I in the middle of? what am I in the middle of? What are we in the middle of? And we've got two wonderful cards here. One is the Page of Swords and one is the Empress. And they give a good balance, I think. Page of Swords. Beginner's mind, right? New ideas. Curiosity. Thinking for ourselves. And the thirst for knowledge. Being curious is the Page of Swords. That's what we are. When we are seeking our freedom, our liberation, that's who we are. We're open to new ideas. We are curious. Yeah? We have a thirst for knowledge. And we look around outside of our neighborhoods, be they emotional neighborhoods, mental neighborhoods, physical neighborhoods. It's a card of new ways of communicating as well. Because our ways of communicating can also be a kind of jail. Yeah, if we always say the same things, you've noticed that with people. You have conversations where you say the same things, you talk about the same things, and you never venture beyond those things. There is a kind of a prison wall that becomes built up around that relationship, where that relationship stops being able to grow easily, flourish. So, that's not what the Page of Swords is, yeah? The Page of Swords is the one of finding new ways of communicating, new things to communicate about. It's the discoverer of the mind. And here we see, it's a very odd picture, right? We see a head at the very bottom and this sword coming up from its mouth. Now, we have this colorful sword coming up from its mouth, and that's the new ways of communicating and new things to talk about. As we slice through the clouds of indecision and confusion, because those things trap us, right? We just saw that in the oracle spread. Like, clear away the confusion and the indecisiveness. Page of Swords can do that. As we discover with beginner's mind, what's out there? What can I learn? What can I discover? How can I liberate myself? And then right beside the Page of Swords, yeah, the Page of Swords is looking at her, the Empress. Although it's not only a woman, males and non-binary people can be empresses too. The Empress is the card of fertility, the card of receptivity. Yeah? The Empress's partner, the Emperor, is the card of activity, moving out, putting energy out. The Empress is the one of receiving energy and allowing that energy to grow and flourish naturally. It's the card of beauty and of nature, the flourishing of nature, the growth of nature. It's the card of abundance and creativity. Not so much the creativity of the Emperor of banging stuff together and putting stuff together and shaping things and cutting things away and forming things, but the creativity of nature, of natural creativity, of allowing things to grow. Holding space for growth and expansion and abundance. It's a card of nurturing, of caregiving. And we all have that in us. And that's what we are in the middle of. And we have both of those elements. We have the curious mind of looking around and figuring things out, and also receiving of the Empress and being creative and knowing abundance. And when we are free, when we are confident, when we are swiftly working on our craft, we have both of those things. And that's what we are in the middle of when we are doing our craft in freedom and in confidence. We're curious, we're looking around, right? We're finding new ways of expressing ourselves, of making things, of doing things, of living, of moving with the powerful force of intention, of making choices where that flow of intention is going to go. And also, knowing, carrying, realizing in an openness the abundance that we already have right now. We're not moving towards abundance because we're lacking it now. We have and are abundance, moving with intention. Now, we allow intention to bring the new experiences, to bring us to the new experiences. Yeah? Intention isn't sucking the experiences towards us. Intention is moving us towards the experiences when we are open to it. And that's what the Empress is. Open to abundance and creativity, flowing with intention. And also nurturing and caring for those around us as we do. Because this is all a co-creative experience. And we want to pay attention to those who are co-creating with us. They could be us and us, yeah? The physically focused mind and the eternal mind of our eternal non-physical selves, that relationship. It could be us and the divine, the universal mind, the creator mind, whatever you want to call that, God, Allah, Brahman, Great Mother, Divine Mother, Gaia, Allah. Did I say Allah already? There are so many names we give that consciousness. But we have a relationship with that because there is no separation. There is only union. There's only oneness of relationship. And then there are relationships with other people. And those relationships in particular can be nurturing and caregiving ones. Mutually nurturing and caregiving. We are receptive, right? We're receptive to the caregiving as we give care. We're receptive to nurturing as we give nurturing, and we co-create and we move with the powerful flow of intention. That's what we are in the middle of at every moment of every day. And we can realize that if we are allowing ourselves to be open to that experience. We can cut ourselves off pretty good. Not entirely, not fully, but we can close ourselves off from being our Page of Swords, from being our Empress. But we can always make the choice to open back up, to take down the walls of the tower, to allow the walls of the tower to melt so that we are open and free and moving swiftly. So, let's look at that third question. The third question is, what is clear to me? And we've got two swords cards here, right? We've got the 8 of Swords and we've got the 7 of Swords. Not very happy cards. And in the card on the left, the 8 of Swords, from the oval deck, we have a little different from the Rider-Waite-Smith cards, where you see a female-looking figure with blindfold on, somehow bound around her arms, and in the middle of a circle of swords. Now, it's a card of negative thoughts, of imprisonment. In this deck, we don't see a figure, but we do see the swords. And they're not really, well, I mean, you could see this as being a circle, but it's a little difficult to see a circle in the way that these swords are drawn, but we still get the sense of a prison, a barrier of some sort. And then in the 7 of Swords, we've got a little bit common to the Rider-Waite-Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith art. We have a person carrying some swords away and 2 swords left behind. So let's go to the 8 of Swords first, because this is the primary answer, I think, to this question. What is clear to me? What is clear to me? And remember the nekomata, now that imprisonment. This is what this card is reminding us of, that we are imprisoned. Unless you are an enlightened Buddha, unless you've achieved enlightenment, unless you've achieved divine union, whatever your tradition is, we're imprisoned. We're imprisoned by an illusion, and that illusion is not created for us, but it's created by us. It's the card of self-imposed restrictions and constraints, and we can get ourselves out. We truly can get ourselves out of this Eight of Swords situation. In the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, those swords that are imprisoning the female figure could cut the ropes that have bound the female figure. The female figure could liberate, and then take the blindfold off and walk away. There's no one else there guarding that figure. There's no one else there keeping that figure there imprisoned. The female figure is there, alone. So that's what this card is reminding us, that we are trapped to one extent or the other. Some of us, our traps are much more dense and much more difficult to see beyond than others. Some of us see the swords more clearly than others. Some of us don't even realize that we're in a trap. But we are all in a trap of one kind or another. And to really flow with the powerful force of intention, we want to get out of those traps. We want to get beyond the imprisonment of mind. We want to get beyond the victim mentality that we have created for ourselves. The only victimhood that exists is the victimhood that we impose upon ourselves. Again, I reference Viktor Frankl. He realized that he's only a victim if he makes himself a victim in the book. He chooses freedom. Within the physical confines, within the extremely difficult, the extreme circumstances that he was in, he chose freedom and discovered freedom within that physical confinement. And the most important freedom is mental and spiritual and emotional. Physical can follow later. So the choice we want to make is to get beyond those swords which confine us. But first we need to realize them, and that's what's clear to us. We want to realize the confinement that we have created for ourselves, whatever that may be. Again, a relationship, a job, any limit. I'm not good at doing that. I can't do that. I'm too afraid to do this. I'm too afraid to become this. I can't become this. I was told I can't become that. All of those things which confine us, we can free ourselves from. Doesn't mean we have to do that thing that people told us we can't do. If your teacher told us that you can't be a painter, doesn't mean that you have to go out and become a painter. That's your choice. But you can free yourself from that bondage of, I'm the one who is not a painter. I'm the one who, and maybe you extended that to, I am the one who is not a painter, to, I'm the one who is not creative. And maybe that wall got even thicker, and I'm the one who cannot create. I'm the one who has no artistic sense. And I'm the one who has no confidence in the area of beauty and art. I mean, that's how our walls build up, right? Those prison walls of swords. So we want to clear away those swords. We want to clear our path beyond and get outside of those swords. Doesn't mean you have to become a painter. But clear those swords. Get beyond those swords. And the first step is to be clear about those swords being there. And they're not necessarily having to stay. And then right next to it, we have the Seven of Swords, which is often the card of being deceitful, deceiving other people, getting away with stuff, getting away with something. And often, because we feel we're imprisoned, we feel like we have to lie, cheat, and steal to be able to get what we want. We have to take it from somebody else. We have to get that job, that person, that man, that woman, that non-binary person for ourselves, because we're trapped. And the only way to get what we want inside of our prison is to be clever and sneaky and conniving and get it, whatever the cost. Now, it might not be so dramatic. It might be something like, well, they're not using it now, I can use it. I can, there are so many pens at work, I can just take one for myself. There are different levels of being sneaky, and there are some very, very devious ones, and there are some mundane, blasé, almost meaningless kinds of sneaky, but that feeling of needing to do something to get what I want, because it's not going to come to me naturally, is part of that Eight of Swords experience. And so our workaround is the Seven of Swords, of being sneaky, being clever, trying to get what we want. Often, sometimes from other people, because we want to make sure that they get it and that I get it and they don't. However, there is another meaning for the Seven of Swords. There's a more positive meaning for the Seven of Swords. So we want to recognize when we are being that dark side of the Seven of Swords and move towards the bright side of the Seven of Swords, because the Seven of Swords can also be a solution to the Eight of Swords, even though it's moving back in number. It can be a solution. Because really, the Seven of Swords can bring us into the Eight of Swords, because we get sneaky, we get conniving, and then we get into a prison. However, we can find our way out by the positive side of the Seven of Swords as well. By acting strategically. By following our impulses. By being spontaneous, because that's one of the first ways to discover liberation, is by finding our spontaneity. And finding our own path. Finding our own path out of the Eight of Swords. That can be a Seven of Swords moment as well. Not the sneaky, conniving one, but finding our own way. Not following the path of everybody else, which is another kind of prison, right? Finding our own way. Following our own path. Following our gut. Yeah? Acting spontaneously. Sometimes strategically. We might want to strategize a way of breaking the walls down for ourselves. That can be helpful too. And as we do that, also follow our impulses of, I want to do this. That moment of, I want to do this, can move us much easier, much more easily beyond the swords. Have you noticed that for yourself? That sometimes you get that impulse of, I want to do this. That's a Seven of Swords thing. Not intuition so much as an impulse. A mental impulse of, I want to do that. What about going over there? What about moving in there? Now, some people would say that's also intuition, but it's also a mental activity. So, what is clear to me? That I'm trapped. I want to realize how and where I'm trapped, and that I can get out of it, and that I can choose other ways of getting out of it. I don't have to be sneaky. I don't have to be conniving. I don't have to be clever and get from other people. I don't have to be the thief in the night. I can do it a much brighter, happier, confident way, like Garuda. let's take a look at the fourth question. The fourth question is, what is the easier way? And isn't that a perfect question to end this discussion on? Yeah, we've moved from where? Realizing our craft. We have things to do in these bodies as we move with intention. And we want to be swift, and we want to be confident in our workings. And we want to keep our freedom, because if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. And what is the healthy choice? We keep our balance, we keep a good structure, we keep flexibility, and we start deconstructing the tower that we have built around ourselves perhaps for safety, but realizing that that safety has now become a prison. And what am I in the middle of? If I'm doing all of that, I'm curious. I'm looking around like the Page of Swords, and I'm abundant, and I'm nurturing and naturally growing as well. And what's clear to me is that even in that state, there are still swords around me keeping me prisoner. And I can find my way around them, and I don't have to be clever, and I don't have to be sneaky, and I don't have to steal from anybody else. I don't have to take what I want. It is coming to me when I'm open for it. So I can find my own path. I don't want to follow Joe Schmo over there, or Joan Schmoen. I want to follow my own path. And the easier way of doing that is what? We've got two answers here. Both of them wands. Yeah? What is clear to me? Both of those are swords. What is the easier way are the passion cards, the fire cards. And that's Garuda again, right? That passion, the fire, the confidence, the swiftness of the energy of the wands, the magic of the wands, which is Gollum. We have the Five of Wands, which can be very negative. It can be competing and struggle and strife and all of that stuff, but it can also be good. I mean, it could be something else. It could be competition like a game. Play. Enjoyment. Yeah? Knocking around with your friends, testing out what you can do, seeing with enjoyment what others can do, enjoying the times when you miss the ball, enjoying the times when you catch the ball, enjoying the times when your friend catches the ball, enjoying the times when you pass the ball to the other. I don't know why I'm so focused on balls. I'm not a great player of games using balls, such as baseball, basketball, volleyball, whatever. But still, that kind of competitive thing. Competition for fun. Being careful, being aware when it moves past fun and into aggression. Because that's not the easier way. The easier way is to have fun, to play, to toss a ball around. Not necessarily a physical ball, but when we talk, we toss the ball around, right? Brainstorming is a kind of play with words, of tossing the ball around. That's an easier way. It gives energy. Playing energizes us. Like children. And then right next to it, what do we have? We have the Knight of Wands, another very energetic card. The Knight of Wands, the card of energy. The card of passion. And when we're energetic and we're passionate in an open way, we are flowing. We are flowing with intention. When we're energetic and passionate in an aggressive way, not so much. But if we're playing and we're passionate and we're open, that makes life so much easier. It's a card of inspired action, not doing things because we gotta do it. Whatever it is, be it publicity for selling your product, be it picking up a tool to do your creative work, be it cleaning the house, whatever it is. That's not the kind of action that is easier for us. But inspired action. I want to clean out the refrigerator. It would be so much fun to get that all nice and neat and sparkly shiny. Wouldn't that be fun? Come, let's do that together. Yeah, it could be playful. They could make a game out of that. The card of adventure, exploring beyond the area that we're comfortable in and familiar with. That's the Knight of Wands. That is the easier way. Not going someplace that makes you terrified necessarily, but just getting out beyond and seeing what's out there. That's the Knight of Wands. Of adventure, of impulsiveness. When we are happy, that impulsiveness. Not the, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I gotta do something to do that. But the impulsiveness from joy. Like, this is so much fun. Oh, look at that, let's go over there. That impulsiveness. The Knight of Wands can be competitive. He can. And that's something we want to avoid. Yeah, both of these cards can be competitive in a very negative way. The Five of Wands and the Knight of Wands can be aggressively competitive. And that's what we want to avoid, because that's not easy. That becomes struggle and strife and work. Then we begin to move back into the Seven of Swords. But playful, joyful, experimentation, play, passion, enjoying, exploring, all of that. That's the easier way. That is an indication that we're open as well to the powerful flow of intention. And that's what Garuda is reminding us of. Garuda, the powerful strength of the Knight of Wands and the Five of Wands of playfully expressing our passion and creativity. Not strong, I come to beat you up and knock you down. Not that kind of strength, but the strength of, I can do anything. I can be anything. I can experience anything. Because I am free. I am free. Wherever I am free. That's what we want. That's what we want. It's freedom. It's freedom. And we create our own freedom. We truly do. And freedom is living the intentional life. So friends, what do you think? I hope this was meaningful to you. This spread was meaningful to me, is meaningful to me. Now, if you're curious about these cards, remember there will be a clip in just a moment giving you the basic information. You can find links below. And friends, hit the like button if you haven't already. Please hit the like button so I know that you got something out of this. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, so you get and hit the alarm bell so you get notifications of when I upload videos. I usually do at least once a week. These days I'm doing 2. I added a second series, if you don't know. A shorter spread using Tarot de Marseille. So there will be a second shorter video on a question that comes from this spread. Now, I'm looking at this spread and I've pulled a question out of this spread about that Tower card, actually. So if you're curious a little bit more about how we break down that Tower, I've got another video coming up in a little bit that will go into that, a short 3-card spread. And I think I'm going to call that something like Le Pendu sur la Lune or something, a Tarot de Marseille kind of name for that new part of the series. I'm going to translate the Hanged Man and the Moon into French, just to be cute. So hit the subscribe button so you get a notification of when that video comes up. And share this video with anyone who you think might get benefit from it. And please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Where are your prisons? Where do you notice that you are in prison? And how do you think you can deconstruct that prison that you have constructed for yourselves? Do you realize that you are the ones creating your prisons? or not? Do you still believe that the prisons were created by other people? So let's discuss that a little bit, or a lot, below. And friends, now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.